brother. The secret police around here.
What's the matter, Penny?
I'm late again. And I'm campus next Friday. That house mother would make a good cop. Oh, well, it'll serve him right anyway.
Serve who right?
Norm. It's his fault I'm late. He gets so carried away.
Maybe you should spend more time at football games and pep rallies and less time at Lover's Lookout.
Hey, I thought you had a date tonight.
I did. We came back early.
Oh, not again. This is the third date I've lined up for you, and each time they've dumped you off before curfew like you were coming down with the measles.
I like boys just as much as you do. I just didn't happen to like these. We haven't had anything in common, that's all.
So you come home and read. What is it, English Lit?
Sure. What's wrong with that? That's why I came here, to learn.
Well, there are some things you just never seem to learn. Like it's no crime to kiss your date.
I have nothing against kissing, if I happen to like the boy, and that's how I want to say goodnight. But these friends of yours, Penny, they don't want to kiss you goodnight. They want to kiss you all night. They want to drive to the loneliest spot they can find and see how far they can go.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Jan. It's part of going to college. Like homecoming and midterms and chemistry. You've been here a couple of years. You've got to shake off some of those high school notions about petting.
You make it sound as harmless as an extracurricular activity. It's not something I want to fool around with.
Oh, I just hate to see a cute girl like you sit home. It's an awful waste of your good years.
Well, somewhere there's a boy who feels like I do about it. I'll wait for him.
You may wait a long time. This is the second half of the 20th century, you know.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the year has nothing to do with whether something's right or wrong.
Okay. If you don't mind having the reputation of a prude.
I'd rather have him call me a prude than...
Don't worry about my reputation. Norm loves me. He's the only one who knows what happens between us, and he's not going to tell.
Well, if it isn't the lookout lover, where you been, Norm?
With Penny.
Did you make out?
Well, this guy's nosy tonight.
Sorry, fellas. He never quite made it.
Lover boy losing his touch, eh? What's the matter, sweetie? You losing the old fight?
Forget it, you guys. I had no trouble. No trouble at all.
Do you mean Penny?
No problem making out with Penny. That little girl is ready.
Say, fellas, this will be better than the Late Late Show. Come on, Norm. Give us some of the details.
Well, I picked her up about 8 o'clock, the usual way. And we went out there.
And when in the final lines Keats claims, beauty is truth, truth beauty.
Looking for a poem by Stephen Benet?
Yes.
Just a minute. Hi, I'm Keith Miller. I'm in your lit class.
Oh, hi.
When I saw you in this section, I knew you must be looking for the poem, too. This is the only copy I could find. Here, why don't you take it?
Oh, no, that wouldn't be fair. You found it first.
Tell you what, you read it this afternoon, and then I'll pick it up from you this evening.
Well, it's very nice.
I've got a better idea. You read the book, and I'll pick you up this evening. We can go out for a while, and you can explain the story to me, and I won't even have to read it. Okay?
All right. I'm Jan Morgan.
I know. See you tonight.
I love to come here, to
are full of faraway places, I guess.
I've never been on a plane, but I used to climb trees.
Next best thing. What did you climb? Apple trees? Willows?
No, sir. None of those sissy trees for me. I was the best tree climber in all of Chicago. We lived in the suburbs. We had a big maple in our backyard.
Did you grow up in Chicago?
In Wilmette, just outside the city.
No kidding. I've spent several summers in Wilmette. Did you ever go to the lake?
That's where I learned to swim.
Do you fish?
Love it.
Bait your own hook.
Sure.
How about that? I thought you were just another helpless female.
You're supposed to think that.
Am I?
Penny says men want their women helpless and fluttering.
Penny?
Penny Webb, my roommate. You know her?
I've heard of her.
Oh, don't tell her you found out about me.
Found out.
About the fishing and tree climbing. She thinks I'm the biggest square on campus as it is.
Well, I'm glad she does. Your parents still live in Chicago?
Mother died last year. My sister wanted Daddy to move to Cedar Rapids and live with her family. But he said no. He'd stay on alone at the place.
I wouldn't think he'd want to live with all those memories.
They were good memories. He and Mother had something very special. Not a showy kind of love, but a warm and deep trust in each other. They always gave each other the support they needed in times of trouble. And were so sweet to one another and so patient.
Sound like nice people.
Respect, that's the word for it. Respect was the very core of their feelings for each other.
I don't see how it's possible to love someone you don't respect. Come on, this is the fun part. Now we join the crowd and pretend we just came in from Mexico City.
Oh, it's simply too dull being home again. Where shall we go next?
How about Wilmette?
Okay. How's the outside world? Where have you been?
Mexico?
Hey, it's midnight. I've been expecting you since 9:30. You must have been a success.
He's a doll. He's an absolute doll. Do you know what he told me? He said he'd never had so much fun on a first date.
Oh, that's nice. The second date can be even more fun.
You know, I think I'm in love with you. Jan, would you take my fraternity pin?
Oh, Keith. Yes.
I'll be darned, I didn't wear it.
When I pinned Laura last year, I didn't go through all that. I just hung it on her.
That's why you're not pinned this year. No girl wants to wear a second-hand pin.
That's not the reason. I took it back. Laura wouldn't.
Wouldn't what?
She just wouldn't, you know. I thought she was holding out for my pin, but even afterward, she still wouldn't. Listen, man, a girl who won't after she's pinned, she's holding out for marriage. I'd hope you're making out already. Come to think of it, I bet you never even tried.
Well, maybe I respect Jan. And myself, too.
Respect's got nothing to do with it. If you're in love, it's the most natural thing in the world. And Laura, well, she wasn't really in love with me, or she'd have had no objections.
Maybe if you were really in love with her, you'd have been willing to understand her objections.
Man, it's the physical act that makes love meaningful. Makes a girl yours and no one else's. Without it, there's no deep relationship between a man and a woman, between me and Laura, or you and Jan. You're just having a nice little romance. But love? That's gotta include sex.
Look, Stan, I've got just as strong a drive as you have. But I also want a wife who's more than just a playmate. Someone who's a challenge. And as far as having sex before marriage, I like to think the old standards still have some value.
You know what I say? Down with the old standards, up with a new morality.
Jan's just not that kind of a girl.
How do you know? Kind of girl who will is hard to tell from the kind who won't. Look at the girls in your classes. They're not tough, painted babes. They're girls like Penny Webb. Most of them come to school with inhibitions, but they catch on. They're today's woman, enlightened, intellectually and morally. They're free. Look, Keith, old buddy, I had a girl like Jan. I loved her. She loved me. I wouldn't hesitate 1 minute to seal that love. And if I didn't, or she wouldn't, I wouldn't count it worth my time. Life's too short, man. You think it over.
You still polishing Keith's pin? To begin with, it was the shiniest pin I ever saw.
I know. Isn't it beautiful? By the way, how's your Aunt Lucy?
You're kidding.
Well, you did stay with her, didn't you?
You ask too many questions, hon. Look, sweetie, it's very convenient to use Aunt Lucy to get a weekend off campus. She doesn't have a phone, so they can't check up on you. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I stayed with her. Well, who'd want to spend a weekend with a deaf old lady?
Then, every time you've gone out there?
Oh, I have spent a couple of nights with her.
Penny.
Don't look at me that way, Jan. I know how you feel. I went through the same thing myself. I just couldn't understand how a clean, decent girl could get so carried away. And then I met Norm. And, well, but only my attitude has changed. It hasn't changed me. I'm still decent. Why, I wouldn't think of entering into a relationship of this kind with anyone but Norm. I'm going to marry him.
Yes, but you have to lie and sneak and cheat to be with him now.
Only because our rules haven't caught up with the times. Jan, I've told you why I feel toward Norm the way I do. I don't understand. If you really love Keith, why you're not willing to love him all the way, completely.
Well, I may be old-fashioned, but I've always been taught that sex relations should be safe for marriage.
But why?
I want Keith to love me as a total person, not just as a sex object.
Well, what makes you think Norm doesn't love me over and above sex?
I remember when you and Norm used to have other interests. You used to go to campus plays and things. But now you don't even go to the library together. All you do is head for the Hill or Aunt Lucy's. I want to be sure that Keith and I are suited for each other in more ways than one. I'm afraid that if we start petting, sex will take over. And we'll never get to know some of the other important things about each other.
Jan, you don't really know what it is to be a woman until you're willing to sacrifice everything, including convention, for the man you love.
And you don't worry that what you're doing is wrong?
In whose eyes? It's a lot more honest than necking, than petting, than going halfway. Someday I'll be Norm's wife. Meanwhile, I'm proud that I'm not afraid to show my love completely. Don't you envy me, Jan? Don't you envy me just a little bit? Don't you wish there was as much meaning in your love for Keith?
If I ever did give in to Keith, I don't think you'd ever respect me again. Not to mention my own self-respect.
Self-respect isn't important when you're in love.
But what about Keith's respect for me? I don't ever want to lose that.
Are you implying that Norm doesn't respect me?
I didn't say that. But I've seen it happen before.
I'm not worried about Norm. I know he respects me.
I suppose you want me to say I'm sorry.
Sooner or later, it was bound to happen.
It was just that I'm attracted to you. I just got carried away. I respect your right to turn me down.
It's just, this has never been that kind of thing.
I know. And I've never pushed it. But, Jan, I'm only human.
Do you think it's been easy for me?
Would it be so terrible? I love you, Jan.
Oh, Keith, I'm so mixed up.
Yeah, me too, I guess. I thought I had such definite ideas of right and wrong. Now I'm not so sure anymore. Maybe the world is changing, Jan, and we're just not keeping up with it. And if that's true, what a horrible waste of time, since I love you so desperately.
Keith.
We're young for such a few years, we can't afford to lose a single one.
I worry that it could happen suddenly, in a car or somewhere, some way that would make it ugly for us. I love you so much. I couldn't stand to have it happen like that. That's why waiting is so important to me.
But how can we stand to wait 2 or 3 years? Stan knows a nice little resort about 60 miles from here. They get a lot of newlyweds. It could be just like our honeymoon. We could pretend we're married.
You mean us go there?
You could tell them you were spending the weekend with your aunt or something.
I better go in now.
Okay, so you won't even talk about it.
Keith, maybe we hadn't better see each other so much.
Maybe we hadn't better see each other at all.
Don't ask me for advice then. I give it to you, and you put on a face like you'd just seen a spider in your dresser drawer.
You mean, you think I should go with him?
Only if you want to keep his love.
Oh, I do. I do, but not that way.
How can you say you love him if you're not willing to back your words?
If I do go with him, what happens to all my ideals?
Take your choice, Jan. Keith or all those ideals. It was a choice I had to make, too. I know how hard it is to leave them behind. But it's all part of growing up.
Hey, what are you doing up there?
I might ask, what are you doing down there?
Just a minute, I'll be right up. Hey, you do climb trees.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, me too.
How did you happen to come here?
I don't know. Nostalgic memories, I guess. Jan,
Yes,
I missed you.
I missed you too, Keith. Oh, Keith, these weeks have been a nightmare. I don't like to quarrel with you.
I don't either, Jan. Let's start over.
What's the suitcase for, Penny?
Honey, I'm getting out of this school.
What are you talking about?
On the midnight bus. I'm going home.
What's the matter, Penny?
You'll enjoy this. You can look me straight in the eye and say I told you so.
Penny.
You know what's happened? I had a date with Norm tonight. He said he had something special to talk to me about. I thought he wanted to talk about getting married. I was right. He did want to talk about getting married, but not to me. He casually announced his engagement to a girl back home. They're getting married next month. Of course, I was furious. I thought he'd been two-timing me, that she was pregnant or something. It's worse than that. He's never even touched her. Oh, Jan, I was just like you once.
Don't leave school, Penny. Running home isn't going to help. Oh, I know how you must feel, but stay until finals. They're only 3 weeks away.
I could study day and night, still not pass finals. My grades have slipped so much this semester, I'm losing my scholarship. I let Norm take over every part of my life. I couldn't think, I couldn't study. Boy, oh boy, it'll be a long time before I fall in love again. You can have my books and anything else I left, or give them to the other girls. Oh, and Jan, please don't tell them everything.
Penny, maybe you'll be back next year.
Who knows? Bye, Jan.
How's it going, Keith? Hi.
What a wonderful party this is, Keith. I'm so glad you asked me.
Well, I did invite several other girls, but they were all busy, so... I'm glad you're still wearing my pin, Jan. I thought maybe after our last date that...
Well, I was hurt, but
I never want to hurt you again. Jan, is it too early to begin making any plans?
I've been making plans for a long time.
The night I mentioned about us going to the resort, you had the most hurt, disillusioned expression I'd ever seen on a person. I knew then that you were the only one for me, that I had to shape up.
You didn't act like it. I didn't see you for weeks, and all the time I was dying inside. Why didn't you at least call me?
I wanted to. You'll never know how I wanted to. But I was nursing my pride, I guess. And a little shame.
You don't know it, but I was wondering if I hadn't made a mistake. You know, with so many kids thinking that way.
You didn't make any mistake. I was the one that was wrong. You know, Jen, I really didn't want you to do what I suggested. The resort, I mean. It was a lot of things. Pressure from the guys. I wanted to make sure that I had you. Plus the fact that I'm physically attracted to you. But now, our relationship seems, well, so much more than just physical.
You and I and love have a different language. When you didn't call, I was crushed. But when you did, it was like poetry was set free in my soul. I even memorized a little of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach, when feeling out of sight for the end of being in ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need, by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely, as men strive for right. I love thee purely, as thee turn from praise. I love thee. I love thee.
Please forgive me, Jan. I love you too, more than I can ever tell you tonight. Please let me tell you the rest of my life.